allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show that Mr. Dowd is absent, everybody else is present. Mr. Board, is public notice was given.
Yes, it has.
All right, shout outs and celebrations.
Okay, we have one shout out. Of course, if anybody else wants to that's joined later, just go out and fill out one of these orange cards and give it to Mrs. Coleman. But Mr. Scott Bailey.
I want to give a shout out to the cast and crew of A Night Under the Stars play that happened this past weekend. The kids did a fantastic job. There were several comments from audience members after the show that it was some of the best acting that they have ever seen in a high school. So Mr. Kiernan is one of those people that was in the show. Also the behind the scenes people, the crew, the entire production was student run. So curtains, sound, lights, the set, everything was done by the kids. And then Tiffany Boyarski and Lisa Bailing were the two directors, and Cole Muth and G4 were the adults that were taking care of the lights and the sound. So just want to give a shout out to them that the kids did a fantastic job.
Thank you. Mrs. Coleman, any others? No.
Sorry, I missed that. Was going.
Thank you.
Public comment per policy 0167.3. Anyone wishing to participate in the period of public comments must be a resident of the Richland School District, the parent or legal guardian of an enrolled district student or an enrolled district student. Persons wishing to participate must be physically present at the meeting and must register in advance. A total time allotment of 30 minutes will be given for public comment. Each participant shall be given 3 minutes to address the board. Speakers are not permitted to make inflammatory comments, use inappropriate language or gestures, attack specific persons, or make a specific person the subject of their remarks. Please see policy 0167.3 for a complete list of requirements and restrictions. If a person is unable to adhere to these rules, they may be directed to end their comments. Mrs. Coleman?
No public comment.
Thank you. And two reports, district administrator's report.
Okay, just a couple of dates. Next Monday night at 6 p.m. will be our next steering committee meeting held here at the IMC here at the high school. And then next Wednesday, the 18th, for board members, that'll be a governance meeting. And I apologize, I forgot to bring packets that I was going to give you. So if I don't get them to you tonight, I will send out an email that so you have the information in preparation for next Wednesday's governance meeting. And then finally, I just wanted to recognize that Dr. Sherry Johnson is a recognized nominee for the Wisconsin Title I Association Outstanding Administrator. And she'll be recognized at the Wilderness in the Dells on April 10th. And with some staff members that took the initiative to nominate Dr. Johnson, and she received that award. So congratulations to her. That's all I have. Any questions from the board?
Congratulations, Sherry. Well deserved.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Student council report.
All right, Mr. Culver. Please push that microphone so it turns green. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kieran Culver, and I am the president of the RCHS Student Council. The council is hard at work preparing projects to present at WASC State Convention on April 19th and 20th in Madison. We're planning to send roughly 12 high-achieving members to present what our council has done so far this year and interact with other student councils. A school-wide Cerrugi's chocolate bar sale and fundraiser is also being carried out by the council, which has been underway since last week. Next week, our events committee will be hosting a Red Cross blood drive on Wednesday, March 18th, which we are gathering volunteers for. Lastly, all of our committees are still hard at work coming up with new projects to better our community and our school. Does anyone have any questions I can answer? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Board member reports. Steering committee met on March 2nd, last Monday. Basically, reviewing its charge, gathering community input to help shape the updated mission, vision, and value statements, as well as the strategic framework. Confirmed the dates for the community engagement sessions. It's a 2-day thing. It'll be Sunday, April 26th from 4 to 6, and Wednesday, April 29th from 6 to 8. They discussed pretty lengthily on event logistics, location at the school, food, childcare, student greeters, student performances, and ways to make the events very welcoming, family friendly. There was a heavy focus on outreach and marketing, with an emphasis on personally inviting a broad cross-section of the community. So participation reflects more than just one group, very similar to what we did when we developed the steering committee. Continuing building a community contact map to ensure strong representation from parents, staff, students, seniors, businesses, churches, agriculture, and other community groups. So it's pretty fun watching the process take place. Any questions?
Aaron, what were those dates again?
April 26th from 4 to 6. And then April 29th from 6 to 8.
Thank you.
Apologize, I can talk fast.
No, that's okay.
All right, alternative education report.
Okay, hopefully you had an opportunity to see Dr. Johnson's report on our alternative education options. School district, we have 5 alternative education options: the RC program, Hive, Partner, our off-campus alt ed, which we still need a name for, and I Thrive. We've got about 150 students in our alternative education programs throughout those 5 different programs. So happy to answer any specific questions you have. I see Dr. Johnson is online as well, if you have any questions for her. Our alt ed has really been something that, in fact, I mentioned it on the radio today. There's not a week that goes by that a neighboring school district doesn't contact us about what we're doing with alt ed, and I'm sure that those that are dealing directly with these are getting contacted by parents and students even more frequently than that. But this has been a really good thing for our district.
What's kind of the projection for next year for numbers?
Let's see, I think she had that in here. We have about 30 kids in the RC program, and Sherry, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, we have for RC, well, for the 2 that I can really project would be Partner, which we would have some students that are graduating, and then another 20 spots possibly, depending on the needs of those students. And then as far as Hive goes, we don't really know the full capacity of our teachers yet. So we're walking that fine line of ensuring that we fill up our school, but don't burn out our teachers. So at this point, we'd be looking at maybe up to 30 more students. We have, I think it said 13 graduating seniors. And so we could look to take on about 30 more, preferably more in the elementary, because our high school is pretty darn full. And we also want to save space for some of those students who maybe, let's say they have like a life-altering injury or a surgery or something that we need to, move them from our high school to virtual learning. We want to ensure that we still have some space for those things too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes of February 25th, 2026?
So move.
Motion made by Mr. Billing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Any discussion? Mr. Billing.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. On to financial items, approval of statement of cash and invoices.
Make a motion to approve statement of cash dated March 6th, 2026, and approve Community First Bank general checking account numbers number 88103 through 88137, ACH number 252604699 through 252604754, and EFT number 202500177 through 202500263, for a net total of $1,212,533.96. This is for the purpose of the general operating costs of the district.
The motion was made by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Sharp. Mr. Bosworth, anything you want to point out or add?
Yeah, the one thing I would point out tonight, on page 9, about 3/4 of the way down, there's a payment to Nexus, 382,000 and some change. And then on page 12, there's another one for about a little over 9,000. It was total $392,500. Through the reconstruction of the concession stand, Nexus has been paying the subcontractors and keeping track of the bill. And this is the bill that we're giving to Nexus at this time. We received money early in the process from insurance. We're working with our insurance agent to kind of catalog all of our costs, submit them, and see what the final return on our claim will be. But we're not there yet. This represents Nexus's invoice to us.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mrs. Sharp?
Aye.
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 Mrs. Coleman, consent agenda items.
Motion to approve the consent agenda items. Motion to accept the donation of 5 pass-load nail guns valued at approximately $750 from Cardinal Glass. Motion to accept the donation of $500 from the Richland Center at American Legion Post 13. Motion to accept the donation of $300 from Grandview Family Worship. Motion to accept the donation of gloves and mittens valued at approximately $65 from Yuba Homemakers. Motion to accept the donation of $200 from Grandview Family Worship. Motion to accept the resignation of Deborah Lynch, our CHS special education teacher, at the conclusion of the 2025-26 school year. Motion to accept the resignation of Michael Swichtenberg, our CPS special education teacher, at the conclusion of the 2025-26 school year. Motion to waive policy 5851, school events on Sundays, Wednesdays, and holidays to allow for the senior class to attend a trip to the Mall of America and Great Wolf Lodge on Saturday, April 11th and Sunday, April 12th. Was that one changed?
So the 19th.
It will be Sunday, April 19th, due to prom. That got moved to the 19th. Still is a Sunday, but it's just the one day.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items with that date change?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Ms. Troxel. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Thompson? Mr. Board, anything you want to point out or add?
Actually, I'd like to point out something that you're not seeing and that you won't for a little bit, and that's the open enrollment. A lot of times in consent agenda, you'll see the open enrollments in and out. We're right in the middle of the traditional open enrollment window that runs through April 30th, 2026. And so DPI has indicated that we should not act on any of those until the conclusion of that window. So you are not going to see any open enrollment in or outs for the 26-27 school year until after April 30th. So if you're wondering where those have been, they are coming in, but we won't act on it until after the process.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Devon?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank Cardinal Glass, the Richland Center American Legion Post 13, Grandview Family Worship, Yuba Homemakers. Those are generous donations. And also on behalf of the board, I want to extend our best wishes to those who are retiring or resigning. And thank you for your dedication to our school, students, and community. Is there a motion to approve the modified agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Bailen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Dowd. Discussion. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Information and discussion items, district vacancies and appointments.
It's pretty self-explanatory. We've still got 3 positions open. Conducted interviews at all 3 of them. We're in the process of that. And still looking for a behavioral tech at the I Thrive Academy and 2 night custodians. But other than that, we're in pretty good shape. Have been most of the year with staffing, but that's what we have open right now. Any questions? Thank you.
The 2026-27 staff reduction plan.
Okay, so at the last board meeting, at the end of February, the board had approved a couple of different things, 3 in total. One was the net reduction of 3.0 FTE in our certified staff or leadership positions in a non-alt-ed setting. One was to increase the alt-ed staff to 1.0 and by 1.0. And then one was to move to an all-day, everyday 4K. All right, and so with those 3 things set in motion administratively, we've broken these into components. And our first phase that we have done is get us to negative 3.0 FTE. And we wanted to do that with number 1 goal of not having any staff be without a job. Okay, and so we made a reduction at the first grade level. That was through attrition. We had a resignation there, and then a reduction of the high school English and the high school physical education. Those were both done via transfer. Okay, and so that's where we're at from a negative 3.0. Now, as we are finalizing the staffing and moving into what does all day, everyday 4K look like? What are we going to need for staff? That's the next part of the plan. But whatever we add in one place, we'll make sure that we offset it, at least financially, on the other side. And so hopefully in the near future, we have a plan that is finalized, and we'll share that with the board and then start moving forward with it. But we are down to the negative 0.3 or negative 3.0 FTE as we had planned. There's a lot of information in the memo, but happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Regarding that. Okay, thank you. Never fun to have to try to reduce, but we do need to be fiscally responsible to our stakeholders.
All right, Representative Tony Kurtz on Wisconsin education.
All right, we invited State Representative Tony Kurtz here tonight to talk about Wisconsin education. Ask the board to submit some questions. If it doesn't get addressed, you're more than welcome to ask. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Kurtz, and thank you for coming.
No, so that green light's still on, so I'm good.
You're good.
Good. Well, no, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation, but I also want to thank you for what each and every one of you do. It's amazing as I get out through our beautiful district, how hard it's getting for people to run for elected positions, that could be school board or county board or town board. So I appreciate you, what you do. I know it's a sacrifice, so I do very much appreciate that. So I do appreciate the questions. Just a couple things, and once again, I'll go through these. I think these were all submitted by the folks here in the board, but it says, what type of funding will schools receive as they face small enrollment and consolidation? Well, that's a very good question. It's a very loaded question. So let me give you my perspective on the way I see it right now. If you look at our state, and you guys have already seen that in demographic numbers, over the last 10 years, we've lost roughly 60,000 students from the K-12 in the state of Wisconsin. And it's not because people are moving out of the state. It's not because we're actually with the number of people moving in, moving out, it's pretty steady. It's just the birth rates. I mean, that's the facts, okay? And I don't like saying that. It's not a Republican problem. It's not a Democrat problem. It's just a societal problem. It's not only a problem for Wisconsin, it's a problem really nationwide. And if you look at, I don't want to get crude here, but if you talk about replacement rates of births, our nation's actually, the replacement rate is like 2.1. We're actually like at a 1.8. If you look at some European countries, they're below 1.5. I think Italy or Portugal or one of them like 1.1. That is like population collapse. And I'm not saying we're in that situation, but it has to be part of the conversation when you talk about consolidation, when you talk about what does school funding look like. We as a state need to talk about what that looks like. And I want to back up for a minute and talk about UW Richland. I know there's another question about that, and I do appreciate you buying that property. That helped tremendously. But when you look at the decision to close UW Richland, UW system, like I said, 60,000 students in that same 10-year period. UW system as a whole has lost 16,000 students in that same time frame. So when you talk about a 2-year campus like Richland, and many of you have been here. My daughter went to Richland, but Richland in its heyday was having 600 students. When it finally closed, they were down to 65 or 66 students. And now, as you see, going across the state, more and more 2-year campuses are closing. And I know you may or may not believe this. The UW system, they're not going to say it publicly. They want those campuses to close as well, because it's taking students away from the 4-year campuses. And so just as, the UW system had a size like this, they need to shrink. We as a state also need to think about, we got 421 school districts based on a size of X number of kids. We don't have those X number of kids now. And as far as what does consolidation look like, this session, we introduced some bills about spurring consolidation. There's actually, in Wisconsin law, there's actually a way to consolidate school districts. The problem is that doesn't give school districts a lot of incentives to do that. Only one school district has taken that up, okay? This past session, there was some legislation that was drafted to kind of get the ball rolling. If you see legislation drafted now, all you're doing is setting that up for next session. And that's kind of what the consolidation, the several bills that were introduced, it's just to start the conversation. And I think that's one of my goals. I did listening sessions on Monday. I'm going to do them here in Richland County on Friday. We need to start having that conversation on what that looks like. Okay. And I'm not saying that's inevitable. I'm just saying we as a state need to talk about that. And what does that look like? I can't stand here and tell you this is exactly what we're going to do, because to be honest with you, superintendents, school boards need to be part of that conversation. And that's why I think it behooves us as elected representatives to say, these are realities. And just like when I came down, when they did the massive people with the Richland County, when the campus was closed, I was very honest with people back then, just like I'm going to be very honest with people right now. We need to do some form of consolidation, because the demographics issues is not going to get any better. 2026, you guys probably know this number better than me. This is going to be the lowest graduating class in Wisconsin history. And it's only going to get worse as we go down. So we really do need to come up with some collective idea on what does that look like moving forward. So, good question. It says schools absorb smaller schools. Does it inherit that school's debt as well? That's a good question. I mean, those are all the things that need to be on the table on how that works. I mean, I know when we're in Madison, we talk about that. The biggest stick up that we have, and Steve, you might understand this funding formula so much better than me. It's just how the levy limits and the mill rates work between school districts. That's going to be one of the biggest things. Just like you said, is the debt, how's that going to work? We have talked about this, and I probably need to be careful what I say here, but we've talked about, do you actually start a fund up to help mitigate that? I mean, those are the type of things that we need to start thinking outside the box on how do we incentivizing schools is not necessarily the right word, but it actually is. We've got to incentivize schools to look at this and actually take it seriously. I've had superintendents personally talk to me one-on-one in their offices saying this is something we need to do. I said this 5 years ago to one of my smaller schools, and I was basically thrown out of their office. So I guess what I'm telling you is more and more people are realizing we need to do something. What that something is where we all need to collectively get together and say, what does that look like? I'm not going to tell you I have the answers to that because I don't, but I'm willing to listen and to start that conversation. Now, am I saying that Richland needs to consolidate? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying some of our school districts need to look at that very seriously. But we as a state, I think we have a role in it. I think we need to help with that to facilitate that. There's a question here about the federal government looking to increase pay across the board due to teacher shortages. I'm not aware of that. I'm not saying there's not something like that going on. What I will say at the state level, it's interesting. I got elected in 2018, so I got sworn in 2019. And immediately it was all the critical shortages that we're having in the state. First of all, it was a lot of medical shortages, doctors, nurses, things like that. So we have done repayment programs for loans, things like that for docs, lawyers. We are so critically short on all those type of skills. Same thing with teachers. And I'm not saying that the legislature or the state wouldn't do something like that. I know we've talked about that. It's just there's so many other people asking for the same thing. When I have lawyers coming to me and ask, I kid you not, I've had lawyers saying, hey, we need money for help lawyers because we're short of lawyers. So everybody across the board is shortage of personnel. I think the shortage in teachers it's very real. And it's something I think I'm definitely open to how you help with that. I don't have the answer, but I have not heard anything at the federal level on that. Let's see. So as far as mental health, this last budget, we did put 30 million into student mental health. I think that's going to continue. Because like I said, your teachers, your staff are dealing with it every day. People may not want to admit it. When we shut down the schools, not necessarily all schools, I'm not painting a broad brush, but when we did that, that was probably one of the worst things we did for kids. And I'm being very sincere about that. I understand people were scared to death of COVID. I get that, but we are seeing, and your teachers, your special ed are seeing that every day when they go to the classroom. I have a very good friend of mine. She's a third grade teacher, and she's been teaching for over 25 years. Her class right now is the worst behavioral class she's ever had. And I can tell how much it frustrates her. So as far as the mental health, I think you're going to see continued investments in that because unfortunately that's not going to get any better. And I do think just like, but I will say this, you as a school board, as a superintendent, you need to give us some feedback on and I'm not sure if you have to report those statistics to DPI. I'm sure you do, right? So those are the type of things, but not just the DPI, also, let us know, because it's much better listening to you and hear about those interactions than hearing it through DPI sometimes, to be honest with you. But I guess my question, like I said, we did 30 million in this budget. I see us doing, we need to continue that as we move forward in different budgets. So UW Richland, this is something I had not thought about. I know you said, since the school district is buying part of the university, is there any funding and grant programs for remodeling or updating the buildings? I'm not aware of any. I'm not saying that's not necessarily a bad idea. The only problem, this is my dilemma on the two-year campuses. You got to think there's 13 two-year campuses. And last budget, when Senator Markline and I worked on the 2 million, for each campus is up to 20 million is what we put in there. I cannot stress to you how hard that was to get through. I know you might think that's silly, and I think, okay, it's $20 million out of the huge state budget. But if you when we have members of the state assembly and the state senate that don't have a 2-year campus in their backyard, they don't care, to be brutally honest with you. And you know, their thought, well, that's the county's problem. Well, what I have to articulate to them, when the county signed the deal back in the, I think it was in the late 50s, early 60s, it was $1 a year lease. And you have to think about the time, what county wouldn't jump on that? And they did, a lot of counties did. It wasn't a very good, how do you get out of the contract? And so it was a hard task to get that done. Okay, and I'm not saying we couldn't do something like this. I actually think it's a good idea, but I haven't thought about it. So it's something I can take back to my colleagues. So let's see. So the school vouchers and the decoupling, I don't want you to think I'm not answering this question. It's just, so back in late February, I got served on a lawsuit, and I'm named in the lawsuit. And that lawsuit, if you haven't read it, I'll be happy to give you a copy of it if you want some light reading. But that's basically a lawsuit going after school choice and school charter schools. And I think their goal is to find that unconstitutional and basically throw the whole program out. And so I don't necessarily want to discuss that right now since I'm named in that lawsuit. I hope you guys understand. I'm not trying to divert anything. It's just our legal team said, just be careful on what you say on that. Let's see, because I'm sure this is being recorded correctly. Will the funding formula be reviewed for fairer funding? That is a great question. It's something I'm getting more and more of. When you really think about, like I said, when you're taking, I mean, you're all school board members. I'm sure you understand this. When you take 60,000 students statewide out of the funding formula, I mean, that is an unprecedented amount of money. And some districts, so 70% of the districts around the state have a decline in enrollment. I mean, in our assembly district that we're in Richland County now is the 41st. I have 18 different school districts that I actually touch. So the other night I did a listening session up in the very northern area up in Adams County, and that actually has part of Adams Friendship. Adams Friendship since 2020 has lost over 200 kids in their school. And so that's why I'm stressing what we just talked about on that. Do we need a fair funding formula? Yes, we do. Because can I share with you what you and I talked about? So I know I met with Steve a couple months ago already. Yeah. And I thought he had a great idea. You know, right now, everybody knows we do on a per pupil. The idea is maybe you do it on a section basis, on a per section, because then, and like I said, we can get more in depth. But I actually talked with our legislative fiscal bureau about that. Instead of you doing per pupil, you do it per section, and so I mean, have you ever explained this to folks?
Not other than you.
Oh, really? But anyway, so, what do you want to, I don't know if you want to kind of, because you can probably articulate it better than I can.
I'll try.
Yeah.
The general idea was that if a school district loses 10 kids, right, that's the potential for, in our case, $120,000. But those kids are not, they're spread out over 14 grades, right? That doesn't allow you, they're not all in third grade, where it allows you to just say, okay, $120,000, let's pull it out and reduce a third grade teacher. It's spread out over the entire district. So the idea of funding it on a per section basis would be to come up with a ratio based on the grade and then fund it based on that. For instance, if it was 18 students per second grade and we had 54 kids, we would get funded for 3 sections. If we reduced a kid or 2 in third grade, we would still get funded for 3 sections. And that way, when you have single students being taken out of the funding formula across 12, 14 different grades, you're not severely impacted. By the same token, if you truly are to a point where you can reduce and go down to 2 sections because that grade has gotten down to 36 kids, then you can look to reduce that, and then that's what you're funding for. So that's the general idea.
So I took that back to fiscal bureau. Now legislative fiscal bureau, they are our number crunchers. They have a section just for K-12, a section for UW, a section for, health and human services, the whole 9 yards. And I actually met, her name's Christy Pugh, a wonderful young lady. And she was like, wow, that's something we have not ever heard or thought of. So when we get done in the next couple of weeks, I was gonna have Steve come to Madison and we're gonna sit down with fiscal bureau and kind of further look at that because I'll just step back and I'll talk about Mauston for a moment when Mauston went through their referendum issues and they were in the same situation. I mean, they lost like 40 kids one year, and to your point, they're across the whole 12 grades. They're not gonna cut a teacher or something like that. So I think something like that is worth exploring. I mean, if it's a dead end, it's a dead end, but we got to start spurring up ideas, and those are the type of things that I'm definitely open for. So I appreciate you, but we're gonna dive down in that because I think it's interesting to do that. So let's see. So what is the approximate timeline at the state level for school districts consolidating or redistricting to make a school funding more efficient? That is another great question, and I don't have I don't have a good answer for it. It's something like I said, this is my 4th term. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes several terms to get something done. It's interesting. We as state legislators, if you ever know, if you ever take the time and you actually listen to me on the radio, I do kind of put little tidbits here about things that we need to work on. This is one of the things I've been talking about more and more. Trust me, as a politician, it's not real politically popular to talk about consolidation, but it's something I'm not going to shy away from because it's something that affects our district particularly, but it also affects our state. And I'm not going to shy away from that. I've also been talking more about road funding too, because that's something that we keep kind of kicking the can down the road on that too. But I think that's the last one I've got on the list. So whatever questions you have, I look forward to those. We'll see, this always happens. Everybody's very quiet at first. You're thinking of something. You really want to ask something. You're not going to offend me. You're not going to.
It's a question that I have is just speaking on the UW schools that just heard on the radio that 3-year degrees are something they're looking at, which obviously that's going to affect numbers. So we're already down numbers and yet we're passing laws and such, so a 3-year degree can happen, which reduces it even more because you're losing that chunk of people for their 4th year. So it almost seems like there's 2 different things happening that, hey, we need more kids, but yet we're going to let kids get through faster. Can you just touch on that?
Well, I'm not aware. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's something that UW Regents talked about. I believe the other UW system schools are considering it. I don't think UW Madison is going to do that. But I think it gets back to affordability. And it is interesting. My daughter went to Richland. She got a great education there and she saved a ton of money. She went there for 3 years. And then she went to Madison and we got a sticker shock. And so I'm very aware of the value that the 2-year campuses did. Now, can the tech colleges pick that up? That's where you get between UW system and the tech colleges. Each of them have their kind of their own little turf. I know that's not a good answer for you, but I understand your point.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. And once again, thank you for what you do. I'm being very sincere about that. You're here on a Wednesday night, and so very impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. On to action items, the multi-year contract, Kompas Care Contract for Medicaid Billing.
Okay, again, most of this information is in the memo. I'll just try to summarize it, but we use Kompas Care. We've used them for a significant period of time now, I think, over 5 years. And they help us with our Medicaid billing for reimbursement, make sure that all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed. Something that we've been doing, but we have a new 2-year agreement with them. And according to our policy 6320, any multi-year contract where we're on the hook financially needs to be approved by the board. But this is something that we've done a long time and actually pays for itself because of the increase and maximizing of the reimbursement rate that we get. You try to answer any questions, but again, it's pretty self-explanatory. And the contract there is attached in the PDF.
Is this, is 2-year contract typical for a group like this, or is it something that's 3-year, 4-year, 5-year? We're just kind of testing the waters on a longer term than just a single year.
I think the latter is more true than the first part of it. I don't think we've entered into 3, 4, 5-year agreements. I suppose there's a lot of changes, and I believe there's a lot of changes going on at Medicaid, and I don't think that they want to be on the hook without knowing what all that looks like and then locking themselves into a price. So I think that their thought was, let's do 2 years, we can commit to that and explore it in 2 years.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve the contract with Kompas Care to provide Medicaid billing services for 2026-27 and 2027-28?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Sharp. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Troxel. Any discussion? Mrs. Thompson?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Right, before we move into close, I just want to let folks know online, we're going to keep the camera rolling while we move down the hall and in closed session. We'll come back down here for open. Should the camera turn off, we'll turn it back on. So, all right, with that then, make a motion, move into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851. Let me check this. E, to deliberate, negotiate matters related to the potential acquisition of property and other governmental business where competitive bargaining or bargaining reasons require a closed session, including discussion with legislative representatives and 19.851C to consider employment, position configuration, and other personnel matters involving district employees. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Dowd, discussion? Mr. Troxel?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, it is 9:35. Reconvene an open session and call this meeting to order. So we're under action items here, the acquisition of property.
Okay, so just to give a brief summary, we were approached by, when I say we, Mr. Bosworth and I were approached by County Administrator and Director of Simons on Friday of last week about possibility of the school district taking over Simons. There is an innovation grant that is available if the property is transferred to another entity. Because the city and the county are already involved in Simons. Neither of them would be eligible for the grant, at least that's my understanding. So if the school district were to take it on, they would be eligible for this grant worth $120,000 for 5 years to offset some of the costs. My understanding is the grant application would have to be in by March 31st. And even if there was a contract in place to purchase it, as long as it was in place by March 31st, I believe, that you could have up until June 1st to actually complete the transfer. Okay. Schools have a funding mechanism called Fund 80, which is a community service fund. So any deficits that Simons were to have, if the school district were to own that, that could be offset by Fund 80. Fund 80 is a mechanism that it's a separate funding mechanism outside of the schools and outside of any referendums that is added on to the revenue limit, and that money gets taxed to our community, anyone who lives in the Richland School District or the property owner in the Richland School District. So if there's a deficit of, excuse me, $150,000, that next year the school would levy that amount, and then they would collect that money through the taxpayers. Any property or capital improvements that need to be done could also be funded that way. That is why you'll see some pools run by school districts. And I believe that that's one of the intentions of inquiring about the school district to do that. Grant runs for 5 years. Obviously, after that, it would be the school district's responsibility to take that on. And then any capital improvements as well. I think that's generally what we have been told. Happy to answer any questions that the board has, but that's what we're asked to consider, whether or not the school district would be willing to acquire Simons. With the idea we would apply for this grant by the end of March. Any questions? All right, so Rebecca, will you start down?
All right, hearing no questions then. Is there a motion to reject the offer from Richland County to acquire Simons Recreation Center at this time?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Dowd. Any discussion?
I guess, for me personally, I feel that it would be fiscally irresponsible for us to take on any, and at this point, it's a questionable, we don't even know what the cost would be to get it up to speed. We don't know if it's truly just a handover or not. So I don't think that our focus should be on the students, and we've agreed to that. That's where our mission is students first, and taking this on at this point, I don't think is the right thing for the district to do.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I just feel at this time, there's too many uncertainties and unknowns regarding the cost that's gonna be imposed upon the taxpayers. So that's my feeling at this point. It's just maybe not a good fiscal move at this point until we either know or have an understanding of how much this is actually gonna cost and how much that cost would be related to taxpayers of this district.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Bailey?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Made by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Troxel. Any discussion? Mrs. Sharp?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.